Hello. Today General Hospital will reveal America is shaken by the shocking news of the shooting of conservative commentator Charlie Kirk at Utah Valley University on September 10, 2025. This political event quickly became the focal point of global media, not only because of its political nature but also due to the untimely death of a young and influential figure in the American conservative movement. Charlie Kirk, a husband, a father, and the founder of Turning Point USA, left behind a significant legacy. His contributions to the conservative cause, including his work with Turning Point USA and his energetic political broadcasting, had a profound impact on American society. His untimely death is not only a personal loss for his family, but also a symbolic event reflecting the growing political violence in America. In the aftermath of the incident, discussions have revolved around the motivations of the killer, the level of security at public events, and the reaction of public figures. Notably, actor Ingo Rademacher, known for his role as Jasper Jax on General Hospital, has become a focal point for public debate. Rademacher, who has long been outspoken on political issues, ignited a firestorm with his impassioned response to Kirk's death. He posted a lengthy video on his personal social media, expressing deep sorrow for the loss of Kirk, calling him a courageous person, unafraid to speak up for what he believes in. Rademacher also condemned those on social media who celebrated Kirk's death, denouncing them as a sign of the moral decay plaguing modern society. Rademacher's post immediately went viral, sparking intense reactions. His supporters hailed him as a bold voice for conservative values, while others, particularly those opposed to Kirk's politics, lambasted him as an extremist. Rademacher faced a deluge of criticism, with some people attacking him personally and even threatening his family. Some extremist groups even spread his personal information, creating an atmosphere of fear and danger. In response to these threats, Rademacher was forced to delete the post and hire security to protect his wife and children. This sequence of events serves as a stark reminder of the dangers that come with expressing political opinions in the age of social media. A political statement, once a right, can quickly become a weapon, with the power to both elevate and endanger. Meanwhile, the investigation into Charlie Kirk's assassination has revealed disturbing details. Tyler Robinson, 22, has been identified as the suspect and was apprehended after confessing to the crime. What is particularly shocking is that Robinson was turned in by his own father, who reported him to the authorities after hearing his confession. Robinson had reportedly expressed hatred toward Kirk in family conversations and had meticulously planned the attack. This development has sent shockwaves through the conservative community, as it highlights the dangerous level of political polarization and the lack of control in political discourse in America. The incident has sparked a wave of debate not only within the political sphere but also across American society. Rademacher's strong words, though powerful, have led many to question the limits of free speech and its consequences in the social media era. It seems that free speech is facing unprecedented challenges, as every statement or post has the potential to become a weapon or an instrument of attack. Charlie Kirk's death is not merely a personal tragedy but also a stark reminder of the deepening divides in American society. It highlights the growing tension between political, religious, and cultural groups, where even a single death can easily be politicized and used as a tool in the never-ending battle between opposing sides. From this tragedy, we are left to wonder whether America can find a way back to a society where healthy debate and mutual respect still exist, or if we will continue to witness an era of unrelenting confrontation, where free speech, though a fundamental right, becomes a double-edged sword. America is still reeling from the shocking news of the assassination attempt on conservative commentator Charlie Kirk at Utah Valley University on September 10, 2025. The tragedy unfolded in front of an audience at a political event where Kirk, the founder of Turning Point USA, was addressing students, promoting the ideals of freedom, individualism, and conservative values. His untimely death not only sparked intense media coverage but also highlighted the growing undercurrent of political violence gripping the nation. Kirk's death has left a deep void not only for his family but also for the conservative movement in America, where his work had inspired and mobilized countless individuals to engage in political discourse. Kirk, a 31-year-old father and husband, had a profound impact on both his family and the country. As a father of 2 young children, his loss has left an irreplaceable gap. His wife, Emily Kirk, now finds herself raising their children without the man who was both her partner and their children's father. As a committed Christian, Charlie had always been vocal about his faith and the importance of family. He had often spoken about how his family was the cornerstone of his life, with Emily by his side through the ups and downs of his meteoric rise in the political world. Together, they had dreamed of a bright future for their children, one shaped by the values they held dear. Now, with his tragic death, Emily has been forced to confront a future without the man she had known as her rock. In the wake of Kirk's death, the reaction from the public has been a mixture of grief and outrage, with political tensions running high. But amidst the headlines and the debates, there is one person who has been thrust into the public eye not just for his comments on the tragedy but for the dire consequences it brought upon his family, Ingo Rademacher. Former General Hospital star. Known for his role as Jasper Jax, Rademacher had long been a polarizing figure due to his outspoken political views, and his response to Kirk's death was no different. On his social media platforms, Rademacher shared a heartfelt video in which he expressed his anger and sorrow over the assassination of Kirk. He called out those on the left who celebrated the death of a man simply because of his political beliefs. Rademacher said in the video, "Some of you left-wing extremists are truly despicable. To celebrate the death of someone who was standing up for what he believed in is nothing short of disgusting." His impassioned words, filled with emotion, struck a chord with many of his followers but also drew the ire of those who disagreed with Kirk's conservative ideology. What followed was a relentless wave of backlash that would soon have dire consequences for Rademacher and his loved ones. As Rademacher's post began to go viral, the vitriol that followed was swift and brutal. Those opposed to Rademacher's viewpoint flooded his social media accounts with harsh criticism, calling him a hypocrite, a bigot, and an extremist. But the backlash did not stop online. Soon, Rademacher and his family found themselves subjected to physical threats. Violent messages were sent to his private accounts, some threatening harm not only to him but to his wife and children as well. The hateful comments escalated, and his personal information was leaked online. His home address, phone numbers, and even the names of his children were shared on various extremist platforms. For Ingo, this was no longer just a matter of online discourse, it was a matter of personal safety. Rademacher's wife, Caroline, was the first to notice the shift. What began as a few angry messages quickly spiraled into something far more sinister. One evening, while the family was at home, a delivery arrived a package with no return address. When Caroline opened it, she found a chilling note along with a severed animal's head, a gruesome reminder of the violence that could potentially come their way. Her heart sank, knowing that the threats were no longer empty words but real danger creeping closer to their doorstep. The fear weighed heavily on the family, and Rademacher knew he had to take immediate action. He contacted a security firm and hired personal bodyguards for himself, his wife, and their 2 children. As tensions continued to rise, the Rademacher family became prisoners in their own home, unable to go about their daily routines without the ever-present threat of violence hanging over them. Caroline, once a supportive partner standing behind her husband's political views, now found herself torn between protecting their family and questioning whether their public advocacy for conservative values had come at too high a cost. Rademacher's children, innocent and unaware of the political firestorm surrounding their father, began to feel the impact of the heightened security measures. They were no longer able to play outside without supervision, and their parents' vigilance in checking the perimeter of their home became a routine that weighed heavily on their young minds. One night, Rademacher's son, asked his father, "Why do we need all these people to watch over us? Aren't we safe?" Ingo's heart broke at the question. He wished he could provide a simple answer, but the reality of their situation was too complex and painful. His children's innocence had been stolen, not by a physical act of violence, but by the pervasive political climate that had made their family a target. Ingo Rademacher's situation serves as a stark reminder of the very real consequences of political polarization in the digital age. What began as a heartfelt expression of grief and anger over Charlie Kirk's death spiraled into a nightmare that threatened not only Rademacher's career but his family's safety and emotional well-being. His family, once living a relatively quiet and secure life, had now been thrust into the center of a dangerous political storm. where every word spoken by Ingo had the potential to endanger them further. As the days passed, the Rademacher family found themselves living in a constant state of vigilance, unable to predict what the next day would bring. The attacks on their safety intensified, and the weight of the situation pressed on their shoulders. Caroline, in particular, struggled with the emotional toll this took on her and their children. She had always supported her husband's political views, but the reality of their new life was something neither of them had anticipated. The physical threats were not just to Ingo. They were to everything he held dear: his wife, his children, their home, their sense of peace. Rademacher, once a figure who had courted controversy, now found himself in the midst of a living nightmare, where each day was filled with uncertainty. The events that followed his impassioned video, a video posted with the intention of honoring a fallen ally, had set off a chain reaction that he could not have foreseen. And as the Rademacher family continued to navigate this frightening new reality, they could only hope that one day they would be able to find some semblance of peace, free from the threats and hate that had followed them into their personal lives. In the end, the cost of speaking out for one's beliefs, as Ingo Rademacher had learned, is not just personal. It can ripple outward, touching the lives of those you love and care for. And in a society as politically charged as America's today, that cost might just be too high for many to bear. In the ever-evolving landscape of modern politics, Ingo Rademacher's story has come to symbolize the perilous intersection of public life, personal beliefs, and the increasingly toxic political climate. A former star of the long-running soap opera General Hospital, Rademacher's transition from beloved television actor to outspoken political figure has not been without its share of controversy. His journey highlights the dangers of navigating the polarizing world of politics, especially when those views spill over into the personal lives of not only the individual holding them but also their families. What began as a dispute over a vaccine mandate soon escalated into a public and private battleground that would turn Rademacher's life upside down and, tragically, would also affect the lives of his wife and children. Rademacher's troubles began in 2021, when ABC, the network behind General Hospital, instituted a policy mandating the COVID-19 vaccine for all employees. Rademacher, steadfast in his personal beliefs, refused to comply with the mandate. For many, this decision was seen as not just an act of defiance against a policy designed to protect the public health but a deeper reflection of a growing culture war in America. To some, Rademacher became a hero for standing up for personal freedom, while to others, he was a symbol of recklessness and ignorance in the face of a global health crisis. His refusal to adhere to the vaccine mandate led to his eventual dismissal from the show, sparking a national debate about the limits of personal choice, corporate responsibility, and public health. Despite the intense backlash, Rademacher's decision to resist the vaccine mandate only amplified his voice within conservative circles. He became a rallying figure for those who opposed COVID-19 mandates and other government-imposed restrictions. His case was frequently discussed in media outlets and online platforms, where he was both praised and vilified. However, this newfound prominence came with its own set of consequences. While Rademacher was gaining a following among those who shared his views, he was also alienating a large portion of the public. The attacks on his character were personal and often vicious, with many calling him irresponsible and selfish. The situation reached a boiling point when Rademacher filed a lawsuit against ABC for what he claimed was an unlawful termination, further intensifying the political divide that had already begun to consume his personal life. Fast forward to 2025, and Rademacher found himself once again thrust into the political spotlight after the tragic death of conservative commentator Charlie Kirk. Kirk, a prominent figure in the American conservative movement and the founder of Turning Point USA, was gunned down during a speaking event at Utah Valley University on September 10, 2025. His assassination sent shockwaves through the nation, sparking widespread grief among his supporters and outrage at the rise of political violence. For many, Kirk had been a beacon of conservative values, an outspoken advocate for free speech and traditional American ideals. To Rademacher, who had long been an ally of Kirk and shared many of his political views, Kirk's death was a devastating blow, one that ignited a deep emotional response. Rademacher took to his social media platforms to express his grief and anger over the assassination. In a video posted to Instagram, he openly condemned those on the left who, in his view, had turned a blind eye to the violence and hatred that had been directed toward conservative figures like Kirk. "Some of you left-wing extremists are truly despicable," Rademacher said, his voice filled with anger and frustration. "You have no respect for free speech, for debate, or for the right to voice an opinion. And now you celebrate the death of a man who spent his life speaking out for what he believed in. It's an absolute disgrace." What was meant to be a heartfelt tribute to a fallen ally quickly spiraled into something much darker. As Rademacher's video went viral, the reactions were swift and intense. Supporters of Rademacher's stance praised his boldness in calling out the hypocrisy and violence they believed permeated the left-wing narrative. For them, Rademacher was once again a champion of free speech, standing up against the growing tide of censorship and political correctness. But for others, particularly those who disagreed with Rademacher and Kirk's conservative politics, the video was seen as inflammatory and divisive. The backlash came hard and fast. Soon, the vitriol spilled out of the digital realm and into the real world. The comments on Rademacher's social media posts grew more aggressive, with many accusing him of inciting violence and hatred. But it didn't stop there. As the days went on, Rademacher and his family found themselves the targets of increasingly disturbing threats. It wasn't just his career that was at risk anymore, it was the safety and well-being of his wife, Caroline, and their 2 young children. Rademacher had become a target, and in a world where public figures are often subjected to the wrath of online mobs, the consequences of speaking out were becoming all too real. It wasn't long before the threats turned personal. Rademacher's family began receiving harassing messages, some containing explicit threats of physical violence. One afternoon, as Caroline was picking up groceries, she received a phone call from a blocked number. The voice on the other end was calm but chilling. "We know where you live. We're watching you." That was only the beginning. Soon after, the Rademachers began receiving disturbing packages at their home, anonymous deliveries that contained explicit threats and menacing notes. One package, which arrived late one evening, contained a dead animal's head wrapped in plastic, a twisted reminder that their safety was no longer guaranteed. Caroline, already on edge from the constant barrage of online hate, was terrified. The once safe haven of their home had now become a place of fear, where every knock on the door or rustle in the bushes outside could be the beginning of something far more sinister. As the situation escalated, Ingo and Caroline made the difficult decision to take extreme measures. They hired a private security firm to protect their home and their children. Armed security guards began patrolling their property, and Caroline, once fiercely supportive of her husband's free speech stance, now found herself wondering if the price of that freedom was simply too high. Ingo's decision to speak out, to defend his beliefs and honor Charlie Kirk's memory, had put his entire family in jeopardy. It wasn't just Ingo who was paying the price, it was Caroline, their children, and anyone close to them. Ingo's children, once carefree and full of life, now lived in constant fear. The simple joys of playing outside or visiting friends were replaced with an underlying anxiety, a constant awareness that danger could be lurking just around the corner. Ben, Ingo's young son, began to ask questions that no child should have to ask. "Why can't we go outside anymore, Dad? Are they going to hurt us?" Ingo's heart ached as he tried to explain to his son that the world had changed, that the very things he had once thought to be simple and safe were now fraught with danger. For Rademacher, this experience became a grim reminder of the high cost of speaking out in a time when political ideology has become a battleground where not just ideas but lives are at stake. His once thriving career and personal life had been upended by a single video post, a decision to stand by his political beliefs. And now, his family was paying the price for that decision. The violent backlash they faced wasn't just an abstract consequence of online hatred, it was a real and present danger to their lives. In this polarized world, Rademacher's situation serves as a sobering lesson about the risks of living in an era where every word spoken, every opinion shared, can become a weapon. It is a world where personal convictions have real-world consequences, and where the cost of defending your beliefs can extend far beyond the individual, touching the lives of those you love most. For Rademacher, the political landscape he had once been a part of had become a battlefield where the stakes were no longer just about political victories but about the safety and well-being of his family. Rademacher's story is a reminder of how fragile the line between public discourse and personal safety can be. In a world where social media amplifies every opinion, where political divisions have never been so stark, the question arises, is it worth it? Is it worth putting yourself, your family, and your loved ones in harm's way for the sake of standing up for your beliefs? Rademacher's experience answers that question in the most painful way possible. The cost of speaking out is high-hand for him. It may be too high to bear. Looking back at the entire sequence of events surrounding Charlie Kirk's tragic death, it becomes clear that his assassination was not merely a personal tragedy, but a stark reflection of the deepening divide within the heart of America. His death has, in many ways, become a symbol of the ever-growing political polarization that threatens to unravel the fabric of American society. It's a stark reminder of the dangers that arise when political ideologies become so entrenched that they turn deadly, and when words and seen as a means of expressing one's beliefs can become weapons that ignite violence and hate. Charlie Kirk, a staunch conservative and the founder of Turning Point USA, represented a movement that was both praised and fiercely criticized. His advocacy for conservative values, free speech, and limited government made him a prominent figure in American politics, especially among younger generations who looked to him for guidance on navigating the political landscape. But as the country grew more divided along ideological lines, Kirk became a lightning rod for controversy. For some, he was a hero fighting to preserve the values that made America great. For others, he was a symbol of everything that was wrong with the country, a mouthpiece for a dangerous, far-right agenda. His death raised profound questions about the state of free speech in America, especially in the age of social media. In the digital age, platforms like Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram have become not just spaces for sharing opinions, but also arenas where political battles are fought, sometimes with violent consequences. Kirk's death has forced Americans to confront a deeply uncomfortable reality. Is it still safe to express one's opinions publicly, particularly on social media? Or has the act of speaking out become a double-edged sword, where one's words can lead to public praise or, conversely, violent retaliation? These questions have no easy answers, and yet, as Kirk's death shows, they are more urgent than ever before. The rise of political violence and the weaponization of rhetoric are not new phenomena in American history. However, what is striking in this moment is how technology has amplified these issues, making it easier for extreme ideologies to spread and for people to find like-minded individuals who share and support their views. This has created an environment where words, especially those on social media, can be twisted, misused, and, in some cases, turned into justifications for violence. The anonymous nature of the internet allows people to hide behind screens and spread hate and vitriol without fear of accountability. It allows individuals like Tyler Robinson, who killed Charlie Kirk, to justify their actions as part of a larger ideological battle. The tragic events surrounding Kirk's death are emblematic of this new era, one in which politics, social media, and violence are intricately woven together. In the past, political disagreements, while often heated, were largely confined to the ballot box, the town hall, or the coffee shop. Today, they spill over into the digital world, where a single post or tweet can set off a firestorm of controversy and, in some cases, lead to real-world violence. This new landscape is one where rhetoric is often more dangerous than action, and where public figures like Rademacher and Kirk can become targets not just for their ideas but for their very existence in the public eye. Rademacher's own situation, his public outcry over Kirk's death, and the subsequent threats made against his family further highlights the precariousness of free speech in this climate. When Rademacher posted his tribute to Kirk, he did so in the hope of honoring a man he admired, someone who he believed had been targeted and silenced for his beliefs. Yet, Rademacher's expression of solidarity with Kirk ultimately led to the endangerment of his own family's safety. He became a target of the same violent rhetoric that had led to Kirk's death, demonstrating just how easily words can turn into actions in the hyper-politicized world of modern America. This dangerous dynamic is further compounded by the role that social media plays in shaping public discourse. Platforms like Twitter and Facebook have become the battleground for ideological wars, where every word is scrutinized, misinterpreted, or manipulated. While these platforms offer a space for free expression, they also expose individuals to intense scrutiny and, at times, harassment. In Rademacher's case, his willingness to speak out against the violence he saw in the wake of Kirk's death turned him into a target. The attacks on his family were not just about his opinions, they were about silencing someone who dared to speak out against the political narrative that certain groups wanted to dominate. In many ways, the situation surrounding Charlie Kirk's death and its aftermath serves as a microcosm of the larger crisis America is facing today, a crisis of identity, communication, and safety in an increasingly polarized society. As Americans continue to grapple with the fallout from this tragedy, one question looms large: can a society that is so deeply divided ever return to a place where healthy, respectful debate is possible? Or have we entered an era where political violence, fueled by social media and extreme rhetoric, is an inevitable consequence of ideological conflict? The answer to this question remains elusive, but the reality is that America is currently living in an era where politics, social media, and violence are inextricably linked, each feeding into the other in a dangerous cycle. The political divides that have existed for decades are now exacerbated by the speed and reach of social media, where a single tweet or post can ignite a firestorm of outrage and, in the worst cases, violence. As political violence becomes more normalized, it raises the stakes for those who dare to speak out. Free speech, once seen as a fundamental right, has now become a battleground in itself, where expressing an opinion can have life-threatening consequences. Charlie Kirk's death, and the violent repercussions that followed for Rademacher and his family, represent just the tip of the iceberg in terms of the risks people face when engaging in public discourse in today's America. As the country continues to wrestle with its identity and its future, one thing is clear: the questions raised by Kirk's assassination and the aftermath of Rademacher's experience will continue to haunt the nation. In the coming years, the world will be watching to see how America addresses the twin challenges of political polarization and the weaponization of rhetoric, and whether the ideals of free speech and open debate can survive in a climate where the cost of speaking out is becoming increasingly high. The waves of political turmoil that have followed the tragic death of Charlie Kirk are not just ripples in the American political landscape, they are signs of a deeper crisis, one that the nation must confront before it spirals beyond control.